Time to do a brake job on the Miata. This is going to be a good budget-friendly setup for mostly street use, but occasional track use. Let's get right to it. Welcome back to another installment on Project Miata. Today we are going to go through the stock brakes. We're not upgrading the calipers this time, but eventually I may do a big brake kit with sport calipers in the rear. But seeing as how I have a track day in a few days, and I have no idea what kind of brakes are currently on this car, it's definitely a good idea to change the fluids, do new stainless steel lines, pads, and rotors. I am going to try the Hawk HPS 5.0 pads. A very popular kind of dual duty pad is the Hawk HPS. They have very good street manners, and these are their newest generation of that pad. I really haven't found that much information on these, so comment below what you run for pads and what you like and what you've tried and what you don't like, because you know, I'm always searching for the best, and hopefully these are pretty good. They're supposed to be low dust, low noise. They're supposed to last a long time and have a pretty good bite to them. So that's what I'm looking for in a pad. So that's that for pads. For rotors, I'm just gonna run OEM style Centric rotors. Nothing fancy here. The rears were like 40 bucks a piece and the fronts are like 50 bucks a piece. Basically, I know these aren't gonna be on the car forever, and if they warp, they're not gonna send me into debt up to my eyeballs. So, and then we're gonna do Goodrich stainless steel brake lines. It's debatable. I don't know if it's debatable, but I've heard some people argue on whether stainless lines do anything or not. I like them. They're supposed to give a better pedal feel because they don't expand like the stock rubber ones do. And then we're gonna flush all of this fluid out of the system using Motul RBF 600 brake fluid. This has a higher boiling point. Hopefully I don't lose my brakes at the end of the straight at Line Rock. So I'm gonna get to it. I got a lot of work to do. I'm going to do the fronts first. Ow! One of the nice things about it being a Miata is you only need a few tools. A 10mm wrench for the brake lines if you're doing brake lines, and then just a 12, 14, and 17mm socket. So this is going to be a little bit different than if you were just changing the pads, because I'm taking everything apart, cleaning it, painting it, and putting it all back together. But if you were just doing pads, you would just take out the bolts on the caliper itself. So that's just a 14mm here, a 17 here, and then it'll pop back and you can change the pads. The brackets that hold them on are 14mm on top and bottom. And here's a better angle of the caliper bolts. That's the 14mm, and then the 17 brake line, 12mm socket, and the Banjo bolt on the other side of it is where the 10mm wrench comes into play. I'll put all of the torque specs in the description below, so you could go and check that out. And then I'm gonna get to the rear. There's a few things to talk about there. Before we get there, let's finish the fronts. In fact, I got the other side downstairs in the paint booth. Let's see how those are looking. Huh. Pretty good. I think they're dry. For caliper paint, I'm just using Duplicolor enamel with ceramic, just black. Makes it look pretty decent. One day I'll have my own powder coating booth in-house. That'll be the day. I assembled the caliper. Make sure you grease the bolts on top and bottom, and put a little grease on the back side of these plates where the Hawk pads are. These little things you can't really screw up. They only go on one way. The thing that's a pain is the pins on the back side. That's enough of a reason for me to switch to Willwood, if you ask me. You'll see the little holes they're supposed to go into on the side. So just make sure those pins are in the holes, because they separate the pad to keep tension on it, so it's not always rubbing on the rotor. And if yours are shot in really bad shape, get new ones. You don't want them rubbing all the time. Here's a better view of what I'm talking about with the springs. And the clips, those little doodads are on the outside. See how it's clean, flush on the inside? So, easy way to remember. So I just want to note something with these stainless steel lines. They do go a certain way in there. You see how it's round on that side? So they fit up into this slot one way. And then you just push the clip back in, tighten it down, and it's good. Looking not too shabby. I got a little carried away with Stanley Steamer here. Might be my new favorite toy. So for the rear, you really only need a 12 and 14 millimeter socket. That holds the caliper on. That's a 14 millimeter. And so is the bolt for the e-brake cable. And the brake line is a 12 millimeter. To get the e-brake cable undone, you see the little T. You just twist it and it'll come out. You'll see what I'm talking about. Again, this video is more of a guide. I'm not doing every little angle on this because then I'll never make it to the track. So I'm gonna take off both sides, paint the rears, and a few things I gotta show you when you're setting the parking brake and putting it all together. Then we gotta bleed it. So now I'm in the rear of the car. I got the stainless lines mocked up. Well, not mocked up. They're in. So next thing I'm gonna do is the calipers, but I'll show you what it looks like under here. On the driver's side rear, it's pretty much the same type of situation that you have in front, with a clip that you pull out. You know, same thing. On the other side, there's a little distribution block that I was talking about earlier. So there's two nuts that keep that on, and there's a line there and on top. Helps if you take that panel off. Over there that goes in the fender, gives you a little more room to work. We're getting there though. Let's take a look at the rear calipers. They came out pretty good for a little ghetto paint booth job. The rear calipers are way easier to put the pads in than the fronts. They don't have those stupid pins. It's freaking midnight on day 3. Brake jobs usually don't take this long, but I have to, paint, let it dry, paint, let it dry. But I'm about to do the last caliper on the passenger side rear. So I tried installing these thick boys right onto the caliper. Right onto the caliper. You can tell I'm tired. Right onto the rotor, but it was way too thick. So what I did was, I took the pads out. I'm gonna mount the pads in this bracket onto the rotor first, and then I'll put the whole caliper on around it. To back out the piston on the caliper, this is what's a little different about it. Behind this screw is a 5 millimeter Allen head. Oh, it's loose already, nice. Could show you live. How long is this, Johnson? So in there is a 5 millimeter Allen head. So when you back that out, it'll pull the piston back, allowing for more space, and should be able to just wrap the caliper around the rotor. Also, when you're adjusting the e-brake, what you're gonna do is rotate the rotor while tightening that little Allen head in the back. And you're gonna do that until it stops. And then once it stops, back off of the Allen head, just like, I don't know, a quarter turn, so that it still spins a little bit. Get a sip of that. I gotta go to bed. So we're finally at the point where we can bleed the brakes. I'll show you how to do one side, which is going to be the side that's farthest away from the master cylinder. So that's the passenger side rear. But there's a few different ways you could do it. The tried and true good old fashioned way where you have someone sitting in the driver's seat, they pump the brakes to build some pressure, then you turn the bleeder screw out and it'll squirt out the old fluid until it looks clean. That method always works. I started searching for solutions where you only need one person. So I tried this last week on my dad's Jeep. It's a little Amazon hand pump. I'll put the link below to everything here, but I think it's like 30-40 bucks or so. This is nice because you can take it to the track. It's very portable and it worked great. But I'm gonna try something that works even quicker. It's a Four Uncles power bleeder. And I'll show you kind of the operation we've got going on here. So on one end, we got the reservoir. This is everything that comes in the kit. We got the reservoir with clean Motul fluid. I'm gonna have Allie stand by and make sure that the fluid doesn't get empty, because then that'll introduce air into the system and you don't want that. On the other end of the spectrum is this apparatus here. So one end is hooked up to the air compressor and the other end here is hooked up to the bleeder. Set your air compressor, it says anywhere between, what does it say, 40 and 170 PSI, which is a huge range. I'm gonna start on the lower end of the spectrum. Looks like I have 90 PSI in there now, but we'll see how it goes. But it's the same method you would do as if you were doing it, you know, with a buddy, the old fashioned foot way. You're gonna take a wrench, crack it open about a half a turn, the bleeder here. Can you see that at all? Probably dark. But you're gonna crack it open and then I'm gonna pull down the trigger and it should just suck it right through. This is my first time using this, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm gonna set the camera up on a tripod and you'll see how the first time goes, live, pretty much. Oh! Oh! No?
Yeah.
This thing's a piece of junk. You want honesty? Don't buy this. I'm not gonna put the link anywhere because it's crap. I tried it and it was just like leaking out of the plastic somewhere in here, and don't buy it. So I want to know from all of you, please, in the comments, what's your favorite tool for bleeding brakes efficiently and if you're by yourself? But luckily I do still have this backup hand pump. This I will put the link for because it's great. It works like a charm. So this is the same concept, but you pump it by hand. I got the line on the nipple. You pump it up to about there. And then we crack it and look for bubbles. And then you wait until this gauge goes down to 0. See how it's going down? Slowly, but it's going down. And it's gurgling through. Getting all that old crap out. So then you tighten it when it's at 0. Pump it up again. Crack it. And you just repeat until you see no bubbles. Actually, look at the line now. There's a few. Well, anyways, you get the idea. But thank you for watching. Thank Allie for filming and putting up with my crap. Thanks, Allie. All right, peace. Coming up next on DriveItRyan, I changed my Koyo radiator to another Koyo radiator. Then head straight to Lime Rock Park for a very early, cold, wet, and sketchy track day with mass tuning. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. See you in the next one.